I'm going to show you how to research finding living cousins in a particular mission. To get started, we're going to go to the website mission.treefind.org. The first thing you do is sign into Family Search. Then once you've signed in, it's a very simplified interface just for missions. In fact, currently this is a test project, so the only mission that is available is the Alabama Birmingham mission. And that's where we'll be doing our research. So I'm going to go with 6 generations. My family line is all pretty much a northern states ancestral line, so we're going to have to go back a ways to try to find anybody in the South, specifically in Alabama. So we got 6 generations. We're going to search the Alabama Birmingham mission for cousins. So we start the search. As we start the search, you see that the first thing it does is goes up those 6 generations and finds all my top ancestors, and then it begins analyzing each ancestral line. Here you see it's working on Reuben Benedict. It's going to be processing and analyzing all of these lines. This shows how many people have been searched and how many have been found that match the requirement of ending up in the last century in the Alabama Birmingham mission. So we'll just go ahead and let this run and wait for it to finish. Okay, so now the run is finished. We see that 14 people were found, over 20,000 people that were searched, and it took 6.5 minutes to run this. So the way this page works is this shows every ancestor that was run, and then it shows you for each ancestor how many of them descendants were found meeting the criteria. Now if I click on this found right here, it'll shrink it to just show the ones that actually had results. And right now it's showing the first person that had a result, which only found one person. This is that person, which is Lawrence L. Hartley. His death date was February 2010, and his death place was Gadsden, Alabama. So we can go and cycle through each of these groups. Here we've got 2 that are descendants of Jonathan Olin, and shows the last event that took place in their life. This one died in Walton Beach. This one was married in Montgomery, Alabama. So now we have our list. There are 2 ways that we can start evaluating these cousins. These are deceased cousins in order to find living cousins. One way is just to start processing this list. We can start at the top person, his descendant, and then we can just go hit this link icon here and go to the person's homepage in Family Search. What I prefer doing is I actually download a map file. And you just hit this button here, and you'll notice that there's a map, a KML file that is created, which will show the results found and where physically their events are located on a map. And if I open this, I have to have some map tool installed on my computer, so I recommend using Google Earth Pro, which is what I have. So now if I open this, then this will zoom into the people, these deceased cousins that exist in the Alabama Birmingham mission. You'll notice here we are, and we have different icons you can click on to show the people. Here we've got several of them. So we've got 2 people. We got Lilla Mae Williams and Ruth Bradbury Emnett. So you can either choose them by their location on the map as to which one you want to process first, or you can go over here in the table and you've got again listed all of the ancestors as folders, and each one of those ancestors, similar to what you saw in the mission tree find view results, the various people based on their ancestors. And so you could either select them here, or you could just go and physically select someone in the map. Once you've selected someone, then again you can just click on this same icon and get to that person in their home page. So one thing to point out is If you click on this icon and you don't go to a separate browser, just go to Tools, Options, click on the General tab, and click on Show Web Results in External Browser. Then you will have it start in a separate browser rather than within Google Earth. The other thing I would recommend is you take this Alabama Birmingham folder, which is currently in your temporary places, and if you just move it up so it's not in your temporary places, from then on, any time that you start up Google Earth Pro, these Alabama Birmingham cousins will always be there. So now we're going to continue with where we started and start trying to find living cousins based upon the cousins that were found using missiontreefind.org. So I'm just going to click on this first person up at the top and go to his page in Family Search. So with a quick glance of this person's page, we first notice that he was born in Michigan. He died in Alabama, but then he was buried back in Michigan. So this person more than likely is a transplant to Alabama, possibly for retirement, but then at death went back to Michigan. And if so, more than likely his family is not in the Alabama area. But we'll go ahead and do some research just to verify that that supposition is true. So we will go and look first at his sources. He has 4 of them. Obviously, he has complete death information, which should give us some opportunities to find children. And we see we have a death index that will verify his death, but won't really provide us any other information. But what we have here is also a find a grave index, which often will have obituary information. And then we actually have an obituary. And then we have him as a person within the family of his father, which won't be as helpful to us as far as moving forward. Let's go to find a grave just to see how you would look at that, because that's a very good website. So we'll go to Review Attachments, and then we'll go to Image, which sends us to the partner site. And lo and behold, we do have an obituary here, survived by 2 children, Tim Hartley and Tammy Harwood. 4 grandchildren, Katie Hartley and Josh Kyle and Cody Howard, preceding in death by his parents, Gerald and Carl Hartley, 1 brother, Lanny Hartley, and 1 grandson, Zach. Okay, so we know that he had a son named Tim Hartley and Tammy Howard. Interestingly enough, there's no mention of a spouse here. We can try to do research on a Tim Hartley. So we will go to his details page, add a child. He's male. We'll say he's living. And then we have another one, which interestingly enough has a different last name. Oh, that would be her married name. It's a female. So we've got a Tammy Howard. So we'll add this child as well. Of course, we're going to change this to Hartley, assuming that's her married name. And assuming Tammy Hartley then was married to a Howard, we'll go ahead and go to her person page. And we will add a spouse who we say his last name was Howard. Okay, so now we have Lawrence Hartley that we started with. We've now added from the obituary Tammy Hartley and Tim Hartley, his children, and the obituary also had some grandchildren mentioned. So now we've added a Katie Hartley as a child of Tim, and Tammy Hartley, who married to Howard, said there was a Josh, Katie, and Kyle Howard, who were also grandchildren. The second obituary for Lawrence Hartley was identical. So the next step would then be to find as many sources as we can to determine information as to where these people are and who they are and anything we can find out about them. So the next thing is research both the families of the children Tim Hartley and Tammy Hartley. I examined 3 other individuals. They as well do not have descendants living in the Alabama Birmingham mission, at least none were found. Let's hide those. The next person was Ruth Bradbury Emnett. And so I go to her person page. We find that the latest event with her is her marriage with an Edward Shannon Lamonte in Montgomery, Alabama, United States. She originally was from Ohio. And looking at sources, we come to see that there's a obituary of the mother of her husband. His name, Edward Shannon Lamonte, with Ruth as the wife, vice president of administration. So he seemed to be a fairly prominent person. First thing I'd like to do is just do a Google search on him. We'll put his whole name in quotes to look for the whole name, and we'll add Birmingham, and then we'll search. The first entry we find gives a summary of this fellow, and the bottom line says Lamonte's wife Ruth is an Episcopal priest, and so on, and then they have 4 children: Jenny, Baird, Rachel, and Matt. The latest date mentioned in this document is 2015, so this is a fairly current piece of information on this family. What I'd like to do is actually start trying to find these individuals, these living people. And I'm going to use 3 tools for looking for people. I'm going to use Facebook, I'm going to use White Pages, and then I'm going to use the US phone book. So I'll go to Facebook first, and I'm going to just type in the first child's name, which is Brad Lamont, in Facebook. Select that, and the very first person that pops up is from Birmingham, Alabama. Love that. Says he's from Birmingham, Alabama. No friends listed. What do we got in photos? So we'll just search for the photos. Here we got a picture of mom. I love my mom. Doesn't look like we've got a name for mom, but got a picture. Then we got several photos of dad, and we're going to go and look at this picture and read these. Says right here, says, "What a wonderful photo of you both, Brad. You and Ed look so good. What's the name of dad? Edward Shannon Lamonte." So there's some evidence we might be on the track for the right person. Certainly looks like a college professor to me. Looks like possibly a college that they're standing in front of. So we're going to assume that's our Brad. So I'm going to click on his name, and that gives us the actual Facebook address to Brad Lamont. And we're going to create another tab and paste him there. Now we're going to go back here, and now we're going to search for the next child, which is Jenny. And there's a Jenny Lamont from Raleigh, North Carolina. In the area somewhat about her. Lives in Raleigh, North Carolina, from Birmingham, Alabama. Good possibility that's our person. What do we got in friends? Okay, let's search for friends and look for Lamont. And there's Brad right there. So this is our Jenny. And there's Matthew and Rachel. So we've got all of the family. So let's see if we can figure out who Micah and Hillary are. Let's start with Matthew here. Here we got Matthew's family, looks like. Create Micah next to him. And as you look at the first picture, the title is with Matthew Lamont, and also he is tagged as Matthew Lamont. This looks definitely like a couple. And as you go look again at the family picture, they are. Hillary's in Virginia. We're not going to even worry about her. The other thing we know now is Micah says she's in Birmingham, Alabama. That means Matthew's in Birmingham, Alabama. Brad's in Birmingham, Alabama. And the sister Jenny is in North Carolina. So we've got 2 of the siblings in Birmingham. So let's see what we can find out with Rachel. Study of University of Alabama in Birmingham. So she was there. We may not know for sure where she lives, but I'd say there's a good possibility she is in Birmingham, Alabama. So now we're going to go to the next step and see if we can find information about them in White Pages. I prefer to use white pages first in trying to find someone for address, phone number, because the city, state, the location information lookup actually seems to work, whereas in the US phone book that doesn't seem to be the case. However, the US phone book seems to have a lot more information and oftentimes is better as far as linking relatives to each other. So I always try to find it in white pages first, and if I can find someone and get their phone number, then I will use the phone lookup in US phone book to try to find more information. If I can't find them in white pages, then I'll go ahead and search by name, like here in the US phone book. The first one we're going to look for is Brad Birmingham. I didn't find him in the regular white pages. Let's find Matt. Let's go to this one in Birmingham, Alabama. Didn't find anything. Let's try Micah. Seem to tie to the same person. Let's try Rachel. Okay, so we're not finding them in the main white pages. I'd have to pay money for that one. So let's see if we can find any of them any better here. So let's try with Brad. And this one seems to have a problem putting the city and stuff, so I'm just going to put his name. And this is what I really like about US phone book, is once you find somebody, like we've got Brad here, we then can find Matthew, his brother. From him we can get to Rachel, his sister, and from Rachel we can get to Jennifer, her other sister, and then from Jennifer we can get to Edward, who's the father, and from Edward we can get to Ruth, his wife, their mother. So we find every member of the family just by following the links of relatives from one to the other. So here's a summary of what we found on our search for Ruth Bradbury Emmett, who's a descendant of Jonathan Olin. She's his fourth great-grandchild, and her husband is Edward Shannon Lamont. We have a potential residence and a phone number. In the case of Edward, this was his previous residence, so I would probably want to search at this residence first and then his phone number as well. Then we have children. Brad Lamont, a Facebook page, address, phone number. Jenny Lamont lives out of Alabama. Matt Lamont, Facebook page, phone number. His wife, Micah, Facebook page, and this is their address. And Rachel Lamont, daughter, Facebook page, address, and phone number. So some excellent contact information for finding these living people in the Birmingham, Alabama mission.